What if one of the world's oldest dams is hiding a disaster so massive that millions of lives could change in a single morning? Sounds impossible, but this is happening right now. This is the Mullaperiyar Dam, a giant structure standing in southern India for more than a century. Long before modern engineering standards existed, this dam was already holding back an enormous reservoir of water. For decades, it has powered communities, supported agriculture, and supplied water to millions. On the surface, it looks like a success story. But here's the strange part. Many experts believe this aging structure sits in a region where earthquakes are a constant threat. Not massive Hollywood-style quakes. Small, frequent tremors. The kind that quietly weaken structures over time. And that's where the mystery begins. In both 1979 and 2011, earthquakes reportedly left cracks in the dam. The damage was repaired. Life continued. People moved on. But what if those cracks were only a warning? Imagine standing on top of the dam during a peaceful morning. On one side, a controlled stream of water. On the other, a reservoir so huge it contains hundreds of millions of cubic meters of water. Everything seems normal. Then the ground shakes. Only for a few seconds. Nothing collapses. Nobody panics. But that's not even the craziest part. A faint cracking sound echoes through the concrete. At first, it's easy to ignore. Then you notice something terrifying. Water is leaking through a tiny fracture. A trickle becomes a stream. A stream becomes a torrent. And suddenly, a question nobody wanted to ask becomes impossible to ignore. What happens if the dam finally gives way? At first, the breach would look small, almost harmless. But water follows one rule. Once it finds a path, it makes that path bigger. And this is where it gets weird. Within minutes, the tiny crack could transform into a massive opening. The pressure behind the reservoir would become unstoppable. Then, in a single catastrophic moment, the wall holding back decades of accumulated water could fail. What happens next changes everything. A colossal wave of muddy water, rock, debris, and destruction would explode downstream. Trees would disappear. Roads would vanish. Bridges could be ripped apart like toys. Entire neighborhoods would have only moments to react. People running for safety might find themselves racing against a flood moving faster than they ever imagined. Buildings that seemed secure could be torn from their foundations. Vehicles could be swept away instantly. But that's only the first disaster. Roughly 45 minutes later, the flood would reach another critical structure downstream, the Idukki Dam. Now here's the twist. Many believe Idukki could withstand the incoming water. But that assumption depends on conditions being perfect. If its reservoir were already near capacity, the extra pressure could create a nightmare scenario. And that's when the story becomes much bigger than one dam. What if one failure triggered another? And another? Some projections suggest that a chain reaction involving multiple interconnected dams could become possible. Suddenly, the crisis would no longer affect one region. It would threaten millions. The disaster would expand from a local emergency into one of the largest infrastructure catastrophes the region has ever seen. And the most chilling part? The worst may still be ahead. After the floodwaters settle, survival would become a completely different battle. Everywhere you look, there would be mud, debris, and destruction. Entire communities could be transformed beyond recognition. Homes gone, businesses destroyed, livelihoods erased. But here's the strange part. The danger wouldn't disappear when the water does. Floodwater often carries chemicals, waste, heavy metals, and contaminants. Clean drinking water could become scarce. Disease risks could rise. Thousands of people might be forced to leave their homes and start over somewhere else. And that's when the true cost becomes clear. Not just in money, in lives, in memories, in entire communities. Rebuilding a structure of this scale could cost billions. Recovery could take years. Some losses might never be repaired at all. Now comes the question nobody agrees on. Should the dam be repaired again? Or should it be retired completely? For years, governments, engineers, and policymakers have debated its future. Legal battles continue. Reports have raised concerns. Experts disagree on the best solution. And that's the twist that changes everything. This isn't a story about a disaster that already happened. It's a story about one that might still be preventable. Right now, the Mullaperiyar Dam continues to stand. Every day, millions depend on it. Every day, the debate continues. But the longer the questions remain unanswered, the more unsettling one thought becomes. What if the greatest danger isn't the dam itself? What if it's waiting until after a tragedy to decide what should have been done all along?